For most of this trial, Diddy had done what he always does. Give it together. Tight suits, short statements, a cool, calculated image that never cracks.
But on day 4, something broke. Right there, in the courtroom, with cameras waiting and everyone watching, Diddy completely lost control. Papers went flying.
He shouted at his own team. And the judge? Even she looked stunned. What pushed him to the edge? A single headline, one clip, and a voice he never expected would turn against him.
Megyn Kelly! It wasn't some celebrity gossip moment or passing headline. It was a calculated, methodical breakdown of the case. 20 full minutes of televised analysis that tore through Diddy's image and didn't stop until the damage was permanent. And when Diddy saw it, seconds later, he snapped.
But to understand the weight of what happened, you have to rewind. That morning, Diddy walked into the courthouse like he had every other day, surrounded by his legal team. Confident, collected. But sources say he was tense, glancing at his phone more than usual, checking it constantly, something obviously gnawing at him. Then it happened. Minutes before the court resumed session, Diddy received a text, a link. He opened it, watched, and his face changed. His hands began to shake. His eyes locked onto the screen. People seated nearby said it was like watching someone come apart in real time. The courtroom was already under pressure. Cassie's testimony had landed heavy. There were murmurs about new witnesses. The mood was thick. And then, in a moment no one saw coming, Diddy stood up. Fast, abrupt, angry. His lawyers looked confused. One reached for his arm. He shook him off.
He started pacing, back and forth between the defense table and the gallery rail. He was muttering under his breath, at first too low to hear. But then it got louder. She's lying. They're all turning on me. Then came the papers. Documents that had been sitting neatly stacked, suddenly flying across the table. His team scrambled. 2 of his attorneys tried to speak to him. One even stood to ask the judge for a recess. But Diddy was having none of it. He pulled out his phone, held it up, shoved it in their faces. Witnesses say he kept pointing at the screen, yelling about Megyn Kelly. Court security stepped in, not to restrain him, but to make sure no one got too close. His personal security team, those massive bodyguards who usually keep their distance, moved in fast, not to stop him, but to shield him, to make sure no one caught too much on camera.
Reporters in the back row said it was chaos. One of them, who's been covering celebrity trials for over 15 years, said, "I've never seen anything like it. This wasn't a man having a bad moment, this was a man coming apart." Back in the hallway outside the courtroom, everything was moving in slow motion. Reporters grabbing mics, court staff whispering into radios, security clearing a path. And Diddy? Still pacing, still muttering, visibly unraveling. He wasn't worried about cameras anymore. Because in that moment, it wasn't about optics. It was about fear. Not fear of the trial itself, but fear of something he never thought would happen. Someone from the mainstream media, someone with reach, with power, was no longer playing the industry's silent game. And she had just put his name in the crosshairs.
Megyn Kelly had gone live that morning on her nationally syndicated show, and instead of just mentioning the case in passing, she dedicated an entire segment to it, a full breakdown of Cassie's allegations, a timeline of reported abuse, and most damaging of all, she didn't just comment on the accusations, she believed them. "I believe Cassie," she said, clear as day. "I believe the stories about Diddy go deeper than we know. I believe there's a reason so many people stayed silent. And I believe that silence is finally cracking." That clip went viral, fast, millions of views in a matter of hours. Shared across Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. It wasn't just celebrity gossip anymore. It was cultural. And Megyn Kelly, she didn't stop there.
She dragged the industry too. Called out the labels, the collaborators, the inner circle that had protected Diddy for years. How many people knew, she asked. How many stayed quiet to protect their contracts, their tour spots, their paychecks? That was the dagger. Because Diddy didn't just lose control in the courtroom. He lost it knowing this wasn't just one person turning on him. It was the start of something bigger. And Cassie felt it too, inside the courtroom. While Diddy's team scrambled and the judge stepped away to consult with security, Cassie remained seated. Calm, composed, the same way she had been through every part of this trial. But observers noticed a change in her too. She wasn't shrinking anymore. She wasn't bracing for another attack. She looked steady, like a weight had been lifted, Not from the verdict, which was still days away, but from the shift in public momentum.
People were listening. And that was something Diddy couldn't control. Not with power, not with money, not even with fear. After Diddy's outburst, the judge didn't return right away. Instead, she called for a private conference. Just her, the attorneys, and court security. No cameras, no press, no gallery. But people talk. And what leaked afterward was damning. Sources close to the defense team said the judge was furious, not just about the disruption, but about the optics. About what it meant to the jury. About how that one emotional meltdown might have compromised everything his attorneys had been building. And more importantly, she was considering sanctions. Behind closed doors, Diddy's lawyers reportedly tried to downplay the incident. They blamed stress, fatigue, said he hadn't slept, that the constant media pressure had finally gotten to him. But the judge wasn't buying it. This wasn't about being tired. It was about control and the loss of it.
According to one insider, she looked Diddy's lead attorney in the eye and said, "You're about 2 steps away from contempt of court. This ends now." Meanwhile, Cassie and her team remained in the main courtroom. The gallery had been cleared. Reporters stood outside, waiting for any movement. Phones were buzzing non-stop, updates flying, rumors growing, a million eyes watching in real time. Inside, Diddy sat slouched, shoulders tight, staring straight ahead like he wasn't really there. And his legal team, they looked shaken. One attorney paced the room with his tie loosened. Another sat with her laptop open, but hadn't typed a thing in 20 minutes. Because no one was sure what came next. The foundation of their strategy, control, confidence, commanding presence, had been obliterated by one outburst and one video clip. And now, even their most loyal insiders were reportedly questioning whether the case could still be salvaged.
But that wasn't the biggest blow. The real damage came when the judge returned. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. She looked directly at Diddy and said, "This courtroom will continue with or without your cooperation. I suggest you make the right choice." He didn't respond, but his silence said everything, because for the first time, he wasn't the one running the room. The moment Diddy's meltdown hit the internet, everything outside the courthouse exploded. Clips from the courtroom spread like wildfire. Blurry cell phone footage, live tweets, dramatic commentary from bloggers and legal analysts alike. But it was Megyn Kelly's segment that kept circulating, again and again. And this time, people weren't arguing about it. They were agreeing. Celebrities who had once remained neutral started reposting clips. Influencers with millions of followers stitched her words with reactions like, "Finally, someone said it." And it's about time we talk about this out loud.
Even people who'd previously defended Diddy, industry insiders, former collaborators, verified fan pages, started going quiet. Some deleted old tweets, others locked their accounts. Because now, staying on his side didn't just look bad, it looked dangerous. And that's what made Megyn's take so powerful. It wasn't just her platform, it was her framing. She didn't make it about Cassie versus Diddy. She made it about patterns, about the decades of stories that had been whispered in green rooms, after parties, and recording studios. How many people had to stay quiet, she asked. How many careers were threatened? How many were silenced because the cost of speaking up was just too high? She didn't drop names, she didn't speculate. She just asked the questions. The kind that hit you in the gut.
The kind that make even the loudest defenders hesitate before speaking. Back in the courtroom, that shift in public energy was palpable. The room felt different, like the ground had tilted just enough to make everyone rethink their footing. Cassie's team moved with quiet confidence now. They weren't celebrating, they weren't smug, but they had momentum, and they knew it. One courtroom reporter described the atmosphere as the moment before the dam breaks, and for Diddy, the cracks were already visible. No more swagger. No more knowing glances at the jury. He barely looked up. Because outside those walls, his world was shrinking. And inside them, the story was no longer about how much power he had. It was about how quickly that power was slipping through his hands. When the jury returned after the afternoon break, something had changed. They weren't reacting the same way anymore. No more polite curiosity toward the defense. No more neutral expressions. ...
The tension wasn't just on Diddy's side now. It was in the jury box too. They had seen it. They had heard the outburst, witnessed the unraveling, felt the pressure in the room when the judge had to restore order. And for jurors, even if they're told to block everything out, those moments don't just vanish. especially when the man on trial was once the most controlled person in the room. Cassie took the stand again, but this time, she didn't need to say much. Her team walked the court through timelines, documents, expert statements. Her own voice was quiet, but the impact was loud. She spoke about the moment she almost walked away from the case, the pressure, the threats, the fear of going up against someone with power, connections, influence. Then she said something that landed like a heartbeat in a quiet room. I thought no one would believe me, but it turns out the truth didn't need to shout. It just needed space to breathe. And in that moment, everything shifted.
Because this trial was no longer just about one man's guilt or innocence. It was about power, about silence, about what happens when someone dares to speak through all the noise and still manages to be heard. The judge thanked her for her testimony. No theatrics, no closing statements just yet, but the impact, immediate. Reporters outside were already preparing their stories. Cassie's poise wins over courtroom after Diddy's breakdown. Jury silent but shaken as trial nears final phase. Industry support grows as trial turns in Cassie's favor. And inside the courtroom, as Diddy sat still, jaw tight, eyes unfocused, Cassie stepped down from the stand. She didn't look at him. She didn't need to, because she'd already taken back everything he once tried to control. The narrative, the silence, and her voice. He had the spotlight for decades.
But in the end, it was her silence that made the biggest noise. If this story made you feel something, don't scroll past it. There's always someone watching, waiting to see if it's safe to speak. And maybe this time, it is. Stick around, because the courtroom might close, but the reckoning, that's just getting started.